Brian Fisher, you've sought to model Labor's climate change policy. What did you find?
Well, basically, it really depends on how much international permits can be incorporated in the policy once the final decisions are taken, should we have a Labor government.
Well, let's remind people, the Labor's policy, 45% emission reduction target by 2030 on 2005 levels, 50% renewable energy. What are some of the numbers that you found?
If we assume, for example, that we have the possibility of meeting 25% of the target using international permits, then we would see a growth rate in GDP terms over the decade of around about 2.1% compared with what I project otherwise would be 2.9%. So a reasonably substantial reduction in the growth rate over the decade, but obviously not causing a recession or anything like that.
OK, well, let's prosecute some of the numbers. So just on real wages, you've modelled a fall of between 2.5% up to 10.5%. You've got cumulative losses of gross national product by 2030 of ranging between 264 billion by 2030 to 542 billion, and job losses of between 160 and 310,000. This is apocalyptic, Dr. Fisher.
Well, they're big numbers, right? And effectively what that's saying is if you attempt to do a 45% reduction, then you're going to have to make major transformations in the Australian economy. Effectively what we're saying now is we're going to move our economy away from those emissions-intensive industries towards something else. So you must expect that the cost of abatement is going to be fairly severe under those circumstances.
Who paid for this modelling?
I did.
So this is some sort of philanthropic exercise, is it?
Well, basically, I think the reason I did this originally was because I kept hearing media reports that you could do up to 100% renewable energy target in the Australian economy for no economic cost. And as an economist, I find this to be appallingly dishonest, frankly, because, you know, as you, in the case of renewables, as you increase the renewable share in the electricity sector, you must commit to build extra interconnectors, to build extra backup, assuming, of course, that we maintain reliability in the electricity sector. Therefore, there are economic costs associated with it.
Well, as you know, modelling is only as good as the numbers you put in. So let me challenge you on some of your assertions, your inputs.
Yes, certainly.
Energy spot prices, they averaged $85 a megawatt hour last year, costing about 20 billion, not 130 as you predict. Now, even if that figure turns out to be the case, then that would see costs increase by 9.6 billion, around about that. That's about $640 per worker, not the $9,500 that you've said.
Well, I mean, first of all, what we're quoting here is we're quoting the wholesale price. The wholesale electricity price. I haven't attempted to model the retail price because I don't have details.
And in fact, you don't actually tell us what your inputs are in your modelling.
Well, I tell you a whole range of assumptions in the paper. They're all detailed there on my website.
You've been criticised by other climate change modellers that with your assumptions when it comes to cost of abatement. I've spoken to one character today and he said that he thinks that some of your prices, your inputs are 10 times higher than other economic modellers. Snowy Hydro, for example, buys wind and solar for about $50 a megawatt hour, and it looks like you've modelled about 130 megawatt hour.
Right, but what we're talking about here is we're not talking about the spot price today. What we're talking about is the economic cost associated with ensuring that we have a reliable electricity system in 2030. When we expand the amount of renewables, we must expect that we're going to have to pay we must expect to have to pay for the infrastructure to incorporate those facilities into the system.
All right, now we've talked about Labor's modelling. Now you've also modelled the coalition policy. The coalition tells us that its ambition of a 26% cut to emissions would cost just $3.5 billion over the next 15 years. That's the total cost, including Snowy Hydro 2.0. You say that it would actually cost 90,000 jobs and see a fall in real wages of 2%. Is the Prime Minister and the coalition fibbing?
Well, what I believe they're saying is they're saying that the fiscal cost to the budget is being quoted there. And what I'm quoting is the overall economic cost associated with doing this. So, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether we're hitting 26 to 28% or 45%, we must incur some economic costs as a consequence of transforming the Australian economy, and that's the economic costs I have calculated, and I stand by the costs both for the Labor policy and the coalition policy.
Climate change politics gets quite a lot of people hot-headed and excited. In fact, I believe your house was egged this morning.
Yeah, I think somebody has become a little bit emotional and thrown some eggs at my place.
But your work has been criticised over the years. Are you a climate change sceptic?
No, I'm not. I've spent years as a climate negotiator, and I've completed as part of or been part of 3 intergovernmental panel on climate change assessments.
Are you then a sceptic of climate change action?
No, I'm not. All I'm trying to point out is that there are economic costs here, and I believe that voters are owed a sensible, transparent discussion about the costs. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking here about the Coalition or the Labor Party or the Greens. We should have a decent economic debate about what this is going to cost.
Brian Fisher, thanks for your time.
Thank you.